there's always someone who is going to tell you that they don't like what you do, or they will ask like 10 different versions of what you offer, only to have you go back to the first one. There's a reason why the first one is usually and often the best. It's because it's fresh in your mind. And the spontaneity, your instinct, exactly, your instinct and your spontaneity as a creator makes the whole difference.
Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen, to everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell, from the doctor saving lives at your local hospital, to the war veteran down the street who risked his life for our freedom, to the police officers and the firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling. But there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored: the entrepreneur, the creator, the producer. The ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what, I can fix that. I can help people. I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world. Others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks on the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. So the next question I have for you is in regards to your actual customers that you work with. And I would imagine you're talking to other creators that you work with, you help publish their works, right?
No.
And you don't?
No. I designed Fair Square Comics since right now it's my only activity until I find another job or I have another opportunity, which I'm always available for. But I designed Fair Square Comics only for my own purposes as a creator.
Okay, so to publish your own works then?
Exactly. It publishes my own works and the works of my very close friends or my family, because we're a family of creatives. We have a lot of talents.
Awesome.
And yes.
So then we'll frame this question slightly differently. So the common enemy then is generally we talk about something that you can remove from your client's life that you constantly have to fight against. So when it comes to publishing comics, right, and publishing your own works or publishing the works of your close friends and family, what is something that you constantly sort of have to struggle with that, if you could wave your magic wand and just make it go away and make it easier to get your comics published, to get them out there, get audience for them? What's sort of like the common, the thing that you always have to fight against when you're trying to get something new published and going?
Marketing.
So how do you go about marketing comics and getting the attention that you need for a comic to actually sell and make money and return the investment you put into it?
It's a question of, well, I'm sure you're familiar with the French expression savoir-faire. Savoir-faire? You know what it is?
I have not heard that French expression, but my wife probably has. She speaks French.
Okay. So savoir-faire is when you know how to make something, okay? You have the knowledge. But in French, we have the opposite set, which is savoir-faire, but faire savoir, which is you have to put your knowledge, put what you produce in the hands of actual people. When I'm at a show, it's easy because I reach out immediately to the audience. The audience comes to me. So it's easy for me. That's why audiences are a very good way, and comic book conventions are a very good way for us to have our voices heard. Kickstarter is another very good place, because Kickstarter and other crowdfunding platforms, because people come to discover the next big thing, and one day you can be the next big thing. So if you put the quality and the time and the dedication to your project, people will notice. But what about the rest? What about the rest? How do you put your books in the hands of readers? Very hard. That's what I would like to have with my magic wand. It's have a system who will put my work in the hands of readers. Again, I was telling you that earlier, the audience never lies. Audience never lies. Whether they like it, they vote with their dollars. They like it or they don't. If they see it, they will have an opinion. I'm completely open for people to say, your work sucks. But if they have a chance to see it first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if you could wave your magic wand, it would be figuring out basically how to have an audience for everything that you create. So if that's the thing you fight against all the time, your driving force, it's the thing that you fight for, right? And this is
Yes.
fits right in line. So the Peter Parker that we're all familiar with, fights to save New York. Batman fights to save Gotham. Google fights to index and categorize all the world's information. What is it that you fight for at Fair Square Comics? Your mission, so to speak.
Well, my mission is to have different voices heard, and especially my voice, because I think that I would have to ask you a question. Why did you create your first company? I can tell you why. I created my first company out of necessity because I thought that nobody would give me the chance to shine. I would have been put in a box or that box or that box. And I didn't like being put in any box because I knew how to sing and dance. But how about you, Richard?
So for me, it was I started my first company I started, I was 13. I did it because I wanted to make money. But as I've gotten older, and like the company that I currently run, the reason that I started it and the reason why I have done what I've done for the last 15 years is because I wanted to control certain aspects of my life, right? I wanted to control my time. I wanted to control my money. I wanted to control my location, and running my own business was the only way that I saw that allowed me to do that. So it gave me freedom that I wouldn't have had in another space.
Yeah. So you see, freedom is a good motivation, right?
Yeah.
It's the same for every entrepreneur. It's just a different shade of freedom, but everyone wants the freedom to do something. For me, it was the freedom of breaking out of a box. And it's funny because when I was a young entrepreneur, and I was showcasing myself, people were like, "Oh, we don't need another art director. We don't need another graphic designer." So, and I was like asking, "Can I write for you?" No, you don't know how to write. You only know how to design. We know because we've seen what you've done. And then it's funny because after a few years of just writing, people were like, "But can you design? We don't want you to design. We just want you to write." And it's always the same scenario. That people want to put you in a box. And I like the fact that being an entrepreneur, I can be a one-man operation. I can do everything myself. I can write, design, draw, edit, correct, letter, color, publish. I can do it all. Not because I want to like swing my organ in the room and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm the best and I can do it all." No, just because it saves time and I go straight to the point. And I can deliver the message with more accuracy and clarity. But I would love
deliver the message that you want to deliver.
Exactly. But I would love just to say to a company, "Hey, you don't want to hire me? Okay, use me as a consultant, because as a consultant, you can only have access to one of my talents. You don't need them all. Just take this one. But let me work with the other ones." And I guess for every entrepreneur, there's this kind of internal debate where you're like, how much is service that you offer and how much is content that you deliver? It's always that like kind of balance between being a service provider and being a producer of your own content.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So my next question for you is more practically speaking, right? So we call this your hero's tool belt, right? Maybe you got a big magical hammer like Thor, or a bulletproof vest like your neighborhood police officer, or maybe you just really love how Evernote helps you organize your thoughts. What are some of the tools you use every day to create the works that you create that you couldn't live without? Something that you're always constantly using, either for creating your works or getting them out, or your marketing, or whatever it is that you're doing in your business. Top one or two things that you use on a regular basis to make your business go round.
Okay, so everything is behind me, so that's going to be easy. My Mac. Very important. It's been a loyal partner for 32 years. I mean, not the same model, but like I've and it's fun. It's a funny story, by the way, because I've been in the Apple ecosystem for over 30 years, and both my parents were working at IBM. So imagine their face, at least my mom's face, because I lost my dad very early. But like my mom's face when I came back with a Mac, and she was like, "I don't want that at home." But in the end, Max have been like loyal partners to me. And the other one is the little thing behind me here, and I'm going to take this. That is a pen. It's and it goes with the Wacom. That is a tablet, a big tablet. It's a pen display, and I draw on that.
Is that the Cintiq? Is that what that is?
Yes, it's a Cintiq. Absolutely, it's a Cintiq 20. So I can write here and design here and conduct all my business operations, and I can draw there. So everything that I need is just behind me.
That's awesome. I've always wanted to get one of those Cintiq tablets. The closest I've ever gotten is the iPad with a little Apple Pencil.
Yeah, I have that too. I have that too, and I tried, and it was actually useful because it helped me build my confidence as an artist. Because again, I'm self-taught with the iPad, and then when I was limited by the real estate, I said, like, look, you know what? Let's invest in something a little bit bigger and more professional. And I have to say that sometimes you understand that the tool doesn't make the creator. But in this case, it's an enhancer. It's an incubator for your creativity. Because I have this tool, because I have this Cintiq, I can create more and faster. And I have, and especially during quarantine. Like, it's like I'm on fire.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, right? I've got the camera that I'm looking in right now for this interview is, it's $2,500 worth of camera equipment that's pointed at my face here. And, I, as a photographer, I can, I've been doing photography for 20 years. I can take killer stuff with the camera on my iPhone and have been able to all the way back to like the iPhone 4. But what's interesting is like, you're still limited by the capabilities of a small sensor and small lenses that you can't change out, that kind of stuff. And there's just opportunities and things and control and stuff that you can do when you have professional equipment that you just can't do with your more consumer grade equipment. So I totally understand in a different space.
Yes, absolutely. But like, it's creativity,
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about your own personal heroes, right? So just like Frodo had Gandalf, or Luke had Obi-Wan, or Robert Kiyosaki had his rich dad, who were some of your heroes? Were they real-life mentors, speakers, authors, peers who were a couple of years ahead of you? And how important were they to what you've accomplished so far in your businesses?
That's a very interesting question. So in my case, I have looked for a mentor for a very long time because I lost my dad when I was 11. So I grew up without a father as a teenager. And when you have this kind of experience, you're looking for a mentor, a substitute father. And I never found one. There were very few men still alive in my family. So it was hard for me to find one. And I was the firstborn of my generation. So I still am. I'm not dead yet. It became apparent after a few years that I wouldn't find one. And I would become, by that time, the mentor for other people. So I started mentoring other talents before I was even fully formed. Again, out of necessity, because you had these kids needed like guidance. And I thought that I could bring something to the table. So, but like, I find a lot of, we'll probably find that very awkward, but a lot of people have their heroes are people. I mean, of course, there are like comic book creators that are my heroes, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee a little bit, and even though it's controversial. But also my peers. I mean, David Hine, who co-wrote Spider-Man Noir with me, is one of my heroes because he was a great mentor. I never wrote not only just a single comic book before I started this adventure with him, but I never wrote in a language that was not mine. And so it was definitely, it shaped the writer that I became. The other family of heroes that I have come from the music industry because, as you mentioned earlier from my bio, I'm a huge R&B and hip hop fan, and I consider that someone like Prince is one of my heroes because I was mentioning it in another podcast recently. Uh, he was not like a philosopher, but he was, because in his songs there's so many like greatness, great things, great ideas, great concept that like for decades we are going to study what this man brought to the world. And other people who were in this camp, like Jimmy Jam, Terrell Lewis, or other people like that, I consider my mentors because their craft, their work ethics, the way they handle their business is extremely interesting to look at from an outsider's perspective. The other person that I would consider a reference or a mentor for me is Bruce Lee, because I've studied Bruce Lee, and I actually did. Bruce Lee was really a philosopher. I mean, he had a brief time on Earth, only 33 years. What he accomplished in 33 years was pretty impressive. And I did this graphic novel a few years ago, 3 years ago, called Intertwined, which the main character was loosely based on Bruce Lee, and it was the story of an immigrant superhero in New York in 1971, and it was like really all my worlds colliding. I always look back and look at the people who were before you, where they came from, who they were. There are extremely impressive people in my family, not by what they accomplish, but by their soul. They have a beautiful soul. Of course, I will admire my mom forever for for being very patient with me and my siblings, despite the fact that she didn't really have the tool, And she was a survivor. I mean, it's like she was a widow at 30 with 3 small kids, and she made it. We didn't have money, but
yeah,
we didn't starve, and she found ways. So yes, I mean, my mom is a superhero too. And
my grandmother was like that for my mom.
Yeah,
for my dad.
Exactly. But I also look now at my kids. I have 3 kids, and they're all adults, and they live in different countries. I look at them as the next gen superheroes. They are my superheroes too, because as much as a parent, you can look at your kids like, okay, I did the job. They're okay, and they can take care of themselves. When you hear them back, okay, Dad, are you okay? What can we do? You're like, all right, this is a 2-way street now, and it's incredibly rewarding. So yes.
Yeah. Mine are all very small right now. I've got a 1-year-old up, and then a 3, 6, and 10-year-old. So I got a bunch of little ones at home.
My youngest is 18. So
you don't look old enough to have adult children, just FYI.
Richard, I'm going to be 50 in a month. So
yeah,
yes.
I would have only placed you a few years older than me. So you're doing something with the skincare routine. So,
that's my superpower too, I guess.
Your superpower, look 20 years younger than you are. So
my grandmother, when she died, my grandmother on my mother's side, when she died, she died at 91, and she looked 20 years younger. Amazing.
Yeah.
So
my mom's like that too. She walks into a room, people ask me if she's my girlfriend or my wife or something, and I'm like, no, she's my mom. She's 22 years older than me.
Yeah. Well, that's I mean, in my case, it's like this North African genes, from my mother's side of the family that made the difference. But yeah.
Yeah. So I want to bring it home for our listeners a little bit and talk about your guiding principles. Top 1 or 2 principles or actions that you put in place every single day that you think contribute to your success and to your influence. Maybe something you wish you know when you first started out on your own hero's journey or your own entrepreneurial path.
Trust yourself.
And what do you mean by that?
When you don't have a lot of experience, and especially if you're working with other people, either they're clients of yours, customers, or they're like peers or potential mentors or people with like more experience, they will always tell you what to do. And especially like, remember, I came from design, like from 21 years old to now. a big chunk of my life has been graphic design, art direction, graphic design, and art. There's always someone who is going to tell you that they don't like what you do, or they will ask like 10 different versions of what you offer, only to have you go back to the first one. There's a reason why the first one is usually and often the best. It's because it's fresh in your mind. And
Your
the
instinct.
spontaneity, your instinct, exactly, your instinct and your spontaneity as a creator makes the whole difference. Like what I do usually in my process when I create is that I draw a rough, or I write the skeleton of a script, and then I'll let it rest for a little bit, and I tackle it again with fresh pair of eyes. And if it can survive the second look after I let it rest for a few days, then it's good enough for me to invest time on it. I wish clients or customers would think the same. They would have the same level of respect for us than we have for them. And the problem with when you spend a long time servicing other people is that you kind of trust their judgment more than you trust yourself. You never shall forget that the reason why they came to pick you is that you know something that they don't. And you should trust yourself.
I had the experience just recently, actually. I had a client that I had for a number of years, and we were doing a brand design for them a number of years ago. And I put together a brand design that was based on who he told me his customers were and what the message he wanted to get across was. And we put it all together, and he was like, don't like it. Right? He's like, I wanted it to be more edgy and more modern. And I was like, we can do that. And it's really simple to change the aspects of the design to do that. We changed some font structures and some other things to give him what he wanted. But I didn't have the confidence at that point when I was to say, like, no, this is actually what you need. I don't really care what you want. Right. And it was, 2 or 3 years later, he wasn't getting the results that he wanted, and brought in a different consultant to talk to him about some ad things. And the other consultant was like, hey, you should probably do these couple of things to your brand. Right. And what was funny, it was back to originally what I had given him 3 years ago. And it was that first instinct that was actually the correct instinct. And, to your point, trust yourself.
Trust yourself. Trust yourself and build the confidence to say no. Because I learned that, like, when I had my first company, I had one of my partners, not business partner, but like technical partners. She had a company at the time. We were printing, really old school. Before we were printing directly to paper. There was a phase where we were printing on films, and every file had to be separated in 4: one for cyan, magenta, black, and yellow. And we were printing on film. So I was using the services of the company to go through that. And she was working with like big studios like Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount, because she was doing a lot of DVDs and stuff like that. And she told me that story, that once she walked away from meeting with Universal because they wanted her to lower the price, change the routine, change everything. And at one point she said, look, I know what's good for you. You don't. So we'll leave it here. This is a luxury. Not everyone has the luxury to say no to a client. But if you build your confidence, you can, if you have the right material to prove your point. If you don't, if it's just a manifestation of your ego, then no, you can't.
Yeah.
But if you have actually something,
if you have the skills to back it up.
Exactly. You have to have the skills to back it up and say, like, look, I know what's good for you. If you don't want to listen, that's your money and that's your choice. Don't come back in 2 years, tell me you told me so, or I told you so. Because this is how it works. Sometimes the problem with being an outsider is that you think for yourself and you think for the person you have in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's also like kind of that's also a flaw for me. It's like I've been observing the comic book market for 25 years as an observer as much as an actor. And so I see things happening, and I can almost anticipate stuff happening because it's very simple. You just look at how the forces are moving on the chessboard, and you know what's going to happen. And sometimes you really are pissed that you were right, and sometimes you're very happy that you were wrong. So it humbles you because you never cease to learn. You never stop getting challenged by your environment.
Yeah. So I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, by the way, to trust yourself. And I think one of the things it's not something that's going to come easy. That comes with years of experience and getting knocked down and realizing that you actually have the skill set to back up what you do. But it's a place you want to get to. You want to get to a place where you trust yourself and you're capable of telling Universal Studios to know, back up, I know what's good for you, right? Like, you want to be in that place in your business. So I think that's a great guiding principle to, if you're not there yet, work on that. Work to a place where you can get to trust yourself. So
The Hero Show will be right back. Hey there, fellow podcaster. Having a weekly audio and video show on all the major online networks that builds your brand, creates fame, and drives sales for your business doesn't have to be hard. I know it feels that way because you've tried managing your show internally and realize how resource intensive it can be. You felt the pain of pouring 8 to 10 hours of work into just getting 1 hour of content published and promoted all over the place. You see the drain on your resources, but you do it anyways because you know how powerful it is. Heck, you've probably even tried some of those automated solutions and ended up with stuff that makes your brand look cheesy and cheap. That's not helping grow your business. Don't give up though. The struggle ends now. Introducing Push Button Podcasts, a done-for-you service that will help you get your show out every single week without you lifting a finger after you've pushed that stop record button. We handle everything else: uploading, editing, transcribing, writing, research, graphics, publication, and promotion, all done by real humans who know, understand, and care about your brand almost as much as you do. Empowered by our own proprietary technology, our team will let you get back to doing what you love while we handle the rest. Check us out at pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero for 10% off the lifetime of your service with us, and see the power of having an audio and video podcast growing and driving micro celebrity status and business in your niche without you having to lift more than a finger to push that stop record button. Again, that's pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero. See you there. You're listening to The Hero Show, unlocking the power of influence and success.
That basically wraps up the interview. I have one last thing that I do on all my interviews. It's a simple little challenge. I call it the Hero's Challenge, and it's basically this. Do you have someone you know in your network that you think has a cool entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine. And why do you think they should come share their story with our audience?
I have so many.
So your gut instinct, first one that popped into your head.
Oh my God. Look, I mean, this is really timely, but right now I want to say this. We don't have enough diversity in this world. Not just the diversity of colors, not just the diversity of backgrounds, not just the diversity of orientations, not just the diversity of anything. We also need a diversity in spirit. Different set of ideas, people that don't necessarily think like us, people that are going to challenge our whole spectrum and say, okay, maybe we should think about what we've been doing for years and put it backwards, make it differently. And right now, and at least that's what I've been seeing in America, but it was also the case in Europe. This old school, the old school of thinking, they're not ready. They're not ready to welcome people like us that are going to challenge that. They're not ready. Okay, we'll wait. We're patient. We can wait. From the top of my head, there are a few people that really deserve attention that I've met through the years. Women, a lot of women with a lot of great ideas, and that deserve a bigger spot to express themselves. Of course, creators of colors that have also a lot of talent and ideas and entrepreneurship, and sometimes are completely beaten up by the market. People like me, like I'm thinking about a couple of creators that I really know. One is David Walker. David Walker is a bigger creator than I am. Like he has a more body of work. He has a lot of things that he's been doing for years. But it was also an inspiration for me because 2 years ago he launched his own boutique label, just like I did Fair Square. His label was Solid Comics, and David did that, knowing that for him it was a way to put out some material that other publishers didn't want to take a chance on. And that's the problem that I want to point out. Like a lot of publishers, established publishers, they have something they want. They're all driving on the same highway in the same direction. How about we take the little road on the side and we prove them that there's a niche for that?
Go for an adventure.
Yes, but that's why small companies like David's company, Russell Novelty's company, for example, or my company, that's why we're doing what we're doing. I'm thinking about this woman. I only met her once, but like I'm following her. Her name is Sheketa Smith. She's doing she does her own comic book convention for women called Shiro.
That's cool.
In LA, and I mean, like, I don't necessarily agree with what she's putting out, like in terms of taste. I don't like everything, but I admire her entrepreneurship. I can talk about my friend Regine Sawyer. Regine is the founder of a group called Women in Comics, and she has her own company, Lock It Down Production, and she has and she's struggling to put the word out, like, and publish more comics. So these are people that I'm thinking about that could have like more exposure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if we can reach out and maybe get one or two of them here on the show and tell their stories. And it's kind of interesting. It's, you're the second person we've got to bring on who's actually in the comic book space, which is cool for an entrepreneur podcast that's based on this whole comic book world. So it's at this point, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and what it is that you do. My last question for you is really simple. Where can people find you if they want to pick up your comics, if they want to read one of your, Spider-Man Noir, or see some of your independently published stuff? Where can they find you? And then more importantly, who are the types of people that you write for? Like, what's the your ideal audience, so to speak?
Okay, so where to find my stuff? The best way and the most supportive way is to find me on the social networks at my full name, at Fabrice Sapolsky. It's very easy. Or at www.fairsquarecomics.com. There's everything that I publish is there. And there's a store. I'm also making T-shirts like this one. I just created a new design that is like a letter to the big companies, and I'm aping the Star Wars logo, and on that logo it says like, "Dear brands, it's time to empower creators." And you have 4 versions of it. It's time to empower creators. It's time to empower Black creators, Asian creators, LGBTQ creators. I think it's time for creators to get a bigger piece of the pie. And the other thing you were saying the second question.
Yeah, like who is your target audience for the comics that you write?
So the target audience is everybody. I am building right now. I mean, Spider-Man Noir is not for kids. No. It's for mature audiences. One Hit Wonder is for mature audiences, and Intertwine is for mature audiences. So all my 3 published graphic novels are for mature audiences. But I'm working right now on 3 different projects for young adult and middle grade audiences because I have a passion for kids material. And I finally allowed myself to talk about my life and my stories. And these stories are going to be published either through Fair Square or through third-party publishers next year.
Awesome. Well, I really look forward to seeing some of those come out. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure, Richard. Thank you very much.
Any final words of wisdom you want to say to our audience before I hit this stop record button?
Yes. People, create and open your minds to creators over brands.
Awesome. I completely agree. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.